StoryShots is proud to bring you this free audiobook summary. Do you want to get access to more free audiobook summaries like this? Subscribe and click the bell button now to get notified each time we upload a new summary. You can also download our free app and enjoy thousands of other summaries of best-selling nonfiction books that are available in text, audio, and animated formats. StoryShots has been featured by Apple, Google, and The Guardian as one of the world's best reading and learning apps. Go to getstoryshots.com and download the app today. Happy learning.
So we all want to figure out how some companies become great, right? Not just good for a little bit, but truly great for a long time.
Yeah, that lasting success, that's the golden ticket.
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today with Jim Collins' Good to Great.
And you know what's so cool about Collins's book is that it all started with just plain curiosity.
Oh, I see. So he wasn't going into it with some theory he was trying to prove or anything?
No, he was genuinely puzzled.
Yeah.
Like, what sets these standout companies apart? What makes them break the mold?
It's that question that drives this whole research project. And he finds these 11 companies, these superstars, that just blew the market away.
Yeah.
We're talking 3 times the average gains, and not just for a year or two, but consistently over 15 years.
And those 15 years weren't some random blip either. They specifically looked for companies that outperformed even when their whole industry was on fire. Because that's how you weed out the companies that just got lucky.
Right. They had to earn it, prove it wasn't just a fluke.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. They compared these high flyers to companies that, yeah, they were good, solid performers, but they never quite hit that greatness level.
And I bet they made sure those comparison companies were in the same sectors, facing the same economic winds, all that.
Absolutely. As close to an apples-to-apples comparison as you can get in the business world.
So what'd they find? Spill the tea.
Okay, are you ready for this? Because it turns out a lot of what we assume makes a great company is totally off base.
Oh, I love when it's like that. Bust those myths.
Myth number 1, the charismatic rock star CEO, the Steve Jobs, the Elon Musks of the world.
Okay, yeah, you see those larger-than-life figures, and it's easy to think that's what it takes.
Right. But Collins found that's not the recipe for enduring success. It's not about flash. It's about a totally different breed of leader. Level 5.
Level 5 leadership. You know, that's one of the things that really stuck with me from the book. It completely changed how I think about leadership.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. Because these level 5 leaders, they're all about ambition, but it's channeled outward, focused on the company's success, not their own ego.
They're almost like, what's the word, paradoxical.
Totally. They're this fascinating mix of driven and humble at the same time. Like, take Darwin Smith, for example.
Darwin Smith.
From Kimberly-Clark.
Oh, right. See, not exactly a household name.
Nope. And even when he took over as CEO, a lot of people were skeptical. But Smith, he had this quiet confidence. He knew Kimberly-Clark needed to change, even if it meant making a really bold move.
Okay, pause right there because this is where it gets juicy. Smith decides to sell the mills. The mills.
Yeah, you said it, the mills. This is Kimberly-Clark, named after a mill town built on their mills. And he says, let's get rid of them.
That's gutsy. What was the thinking there?
He realized those paper mills, that was their legacy, but it wasn't going to take them to greatness. To become the best, they had to completely change their focus.
Become the best at what?
Consumer products. Things like Kleenex, Huggies, diapers, all that.
So he was willing to walk away from their bread and butter,
Yeah.
their whole identity almost, to pursue something completely different. I bet that went over well.
Let's just say not everyone was thrilled. Wall Street analysts thought he was crazy.
I bet.
But Smith, he had that level 5 vision. He was playing the long game.
And it paid off because didn't they end up becoming a bigger player in the consumer market than even P&G?
Oh yeah, 25 years later, Kimberly-Clark was wiping the floor with the giants of the industry.
Wow.
And see, that's the thing about these level 5 leaders. It's not about short-term wins or making headlines. It's about setting the company up for enduring success, even if it takes years, even decades to get there.
Which actually brings us to another big misconception. You need a brilliant strategy first, and then you go out and find the people to execute it.
Right, the classic, if you build it, they will come mentality.
But what did Collins find?
The complete opposite. These good to great companies, they were obsessed with getting the right people on the bus first. The who, not the what.
So they figured out the what they were going to do later.
They knew they could figure out the strategy, the direction, all of that later. But they believed, and they were right, that they needed the right people in place first to get them there.
That makes me think about what happened at Wells Fargo during that time. They were like a leadership factory. so many of their execs went on to lead other huge companies.
Yeah, and it wasn't by accident. Wells Fargo was incredibly disciplined about their hiring. They knew that to be great, they couldn't afford to have even one weak link in the chain.
I mean, it seems obvious when you say it like that, but honestly, think about how many times we've seen companies struggle because they held on to a leader for too long, or they dragged their feet on making a tough personnel decision.
And that's what sets the good to great companies apart. They had these three key disciplines when it came to people. First, when in doubt, don't hire.
Interesting. So better to have an empty seat than the wrong person in it.
Exactly. Keep looking, keep searching until you find that perfect fit, even if it takes longer.
What was the second discipline?
Speed. If you know someone's not working out, act swiftly. Don't let them drag the team down. You know what they say, sometimes you gotta break a few eggs.
To make an omelet.
Exactly. All right, ready for the third one? This one's a little counterintuitive.
Hit me.
Put your best people on your biggest opportunities, not your biggest problems.
Now that's interesting. So it's about playing to win, not just trying to avoid losing.
Exactly. It's about focusing on what will propel you forward, not just what's holding you back.
So instead of just trying to fix what's broken, you're looking at the bigger picture, building towards that bigger vision.
You got it. Now, that doesn't mean you ignore problems altogether. It's more like you're acknowledging the problems, you're facing them head on, but you're not letting them suck up all your energy and resources.
You're not letting them define you.
Exactly. And that actually leads perfectly into another key principle from good to great, confronting the brutal facts.
Okay, brutal facts. Doesn't sound too pleasant,
Yeah.
but I have a feeling this is where the real growth happens.
Absolutely. And this is where the Stockdale paradox comes in.
The Stockdale paradox. Okay, now you've got to explain that one, because when I first heard it, I thought, what on earth does a POW have to teach me about running a business?
Right. It seems totally unrelated. But bear with me, it's powerful stuff. So this is named after Admiral Jim Stockdale.
Who was a prisoner of war during...
No more, yeah.
So what's the paradox?
Well, Stockdale noticed something interesting among his fellow POWs. He realized that the ones who clung to blind optimism, the ones who kept saying, we'll be out by Christmas,
Keeping their spirits up, looking for that light at the end of the tunnel.
Right, but Stockdale noticed those guys were often the first to break.
Really? Why do you think that was?
Because they weren't facing the brutal reality of their situation. They were clinging to false hope. And when Christmas came and went, and then another one, and another one, they lost all hope.
Oh, wow. So it's like that saying, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Yeah, except Stockdale took it a step further. He said you have to confront the brutal facts of your current reality. Hold those two things in your mind at the same time. The brutal facts and this unwavering faith that you will prevail in the end.
That's a tough balance to strike.
It is, but that's the Stockdale paradox. And it's not about being naive or ignoring the bad stuff. It's about acknowledging the reality of your situation, however tough it might be, while simultaneously refusing to give up on your ultimate goal.
So how does this play out in the business world?
Well, the good to great companies, they embodied the Stockdale paradox. They were ruthlessly honest with themselves about their weaknesses, about their competition, about their own mistakes even.
They weren't afraid to admit when they messed up.
Not at all. They didn't shy away from the truth. They actively sought it out. Like Kroger, for example. Back in the 70s, they were getting absolutely hammered by these new supermarket chains popping up.
Competition was heating up.
Big time. But here's the thing. Instead of pretending it wasn't happening or trying to just weather the storm, Kroger took a long, hard look at themselves and at the changing market. And they knew they had to adapt or they were going to go extinct.
So did they just try to copy what the competition was doing?
Nope. They got even more strategic. They closed down a bunch of underperforming stores. They reinvented their whole business model.
How so?
They became pioneers in using new technology. Like, they were one of the first to use barcode scanners, for example. And it wasn't because it was trendy or anything. It was because they saw the potential for how it could give them a competitive edge.
They saw the writing on the wall. So the big takeaway here is...
you can't solve a problem if you're pretending it doesn't exist. And you definitely can't achieve greatness if you're afraid to take a hard look in the mirror and acknowledge where you need to improve. But confronting the brutal facts, it's not about dwelling in the negative either. It's more like, once you have a clear picture of where you stand, you can actually start charting a course to where you want to go. And that's where the Hedgehog Concept comes in.
Okay, the Hedgehog Concept. See, now I have to admit, when I first got to that part of the book, I thought, okay, this sounds kind of cute, a little whimsical for a business book, isn't it?
Yeah.
But as I read on, I realized how profound it actually is.
Yeah, it's deceptively simple, but it's really about finding that sweet spot. It's like where your strengths, your passions, and what drives your economic engine, where all those things intersect.
So it's not just about being good at something, it's about figuring out what you could be the best in the world at.
Exactly. And that thing you could be best at, it might not even be what you're known for right now.
So it takes some real soul searching, asking yourself, what's our unique superpower as a company? What can we do better than anyone else out there? And how does that connect to what actually makes us money?
You got it. Think about Walgreens, for example.
Okay, Walgreens, I mean, they're everywhere. Right?
Exactly. And their hedgehog concept wasn't anything flashy or complicated. It was basically, we want to be the best, most convenient drugstore experience. And we want to have the highest profit per customer visit. That was their superpower.
So they were laser focused on those corner locations, making it super easy for people to pop in and out.
Convenience was key for them. And they were constantly experimenting with new ways to make those customer interactions even more valuable.
It's interesting how this ties back to the level 5 leadership we were talking about earlier. Those leaders, they weren't trying to chase every shiny object. They were disciplined. They were focused on what their company could be the best at, even if it meant saying no to some other potentially good opportunities.
And that focus, that clarity of vision, that's what allows for true discipline. And I don't mean the stifling, creativity-crushing kind of discipline. I mean the kind that empowers you to be more creative, more innovative, because you know what you're aiming for.
You're playing the long game. And speaking of long game, that actually makes me think of another powerful concept from good to great, the flywheel effect.
Ah, the flywheel. It's such a great analogy, isn't it?
It really is, because it illustrates how those small, consistent pushes in the right direction, they build up over time. It's not about overnight success, it's about creating this momentum.
And eventually that flywheel is spinning so fast, it can power you through almost any obstacle.
But here's what I found fascinating. The comparison companies, the ones that never quite made it to greatness, they often fell into what Collins calls the doom loop. It's like the opposite of the flywheel.
Oh, the doom loop.
Yeah.
It's a painful cycle to be stuck in. Right. It is. Because they're trying to force a breakthrough, but they're doing it in all the wrong ways. Like, they'll bring in a flashy new CEO or make some big splashy acquisition, but it never seems to stick.
Because they're not addressing the underlying issues. They're looking for that quick fix, that magic bullet. They haven't done the hard work of building a sustainable system.
They're reacting to the market instead of shaping it.
Exactly. And this is where we see the importance of those level 5 leaders again. They weren't swayed by the latest fads or what Wall Street was demanding in the short term. They knew their vision, they trusted the process, and they just kept that flywheel spinning.
No matter what.
No matter what.
So it really is about having that discipline to stay the course, even when it gets tough, even when you're not seeing immediate results. It's about trusting that the process will get you there.
And it's also about the culture you create. Because you need a culture where everyone understands the goal, everyone's aligned, everyone's pushing that flywheel in the same direction. That's how you create a truly great company, one that's built to last. You know, it's funny, we're talking about business here, but this stuff is so universal, isn't it? Like that whole idea of the Stockdale paradox, confronting the brutal facts while maintaining that unwavering faith. That's relevant whether you're leading a team, starting a business, or just trying to make a change in your own life.
100%. Like, we can all benefit from identifying our own personal hedgehog concept. What's that intersection of our own passions, our talents, and yeah, even our own economic engine? How do we create a sustainable life for ourselves?
And then instead of getting caught up in that doom loop of just reacting to everything, how do we shift our focus, our energy to building our own flywheel? What are those small, consistent actions that will move us closer to our goals?
Because it's amazing how much those small changes, those little things we do day in and day out, it's amazing how much they can add up over time.
It's like we always talk about building good habits, right? Like you go to the gym once, that's great, but it's not going to magically transform your body.
It's that consistency. That's where the real magic happens. You stick with it week after week, month after month, and suddenly you look back and you're like, whoa, I'm a different person.
Exactly. And it's not just about the physical changes either. It's that feeling of accomplishment, that confidence you build by setting a goal and actually sticking to it.
And it's the same principle at work in building a great company or even just building a fulfilling life, right? There's no one-size-fits-all approach. But good to great, it gives us this incredible framework for thinking about the journey.
It's like you were saying before, Collins wasn't trying to write a recipe book here. He was more interested in decoding the DNA of greatness. What makes these companies so special? And what's so powerful about his findings is that these principles, this DNA, it can be applied in so many different contexts.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter if you're a CEO, a team leader, an entrepreneur, or just someone who wants to make a bigger impact on the world. These principles are universal.
So it all comes down to asking yourself those tough questions, huh? Like, what am I truly passionate about? What could I be the best in the world at? Am I stuck in a doom loop, just reacting to everything? Or am I consciously building my own flywheel?
Those are the questions that really make you think. And they can be a little uncomfortable sometimes. But without that honest self-assessment, you're never going to reach your full potential.
You've got to face those brutal facts, right?
You got it.
Well, this has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I always learn so much from our conversations. And I think if I had to boil it down to one big takeaway from good to great, it's that greatness isn't some destination you arrive at. It's not like, okay, we're here, we made it, we're great now. It's more about the journey, you know? It's about constantly striving, learning, evolving, getting better every single day.
And it's about believing in yourself, believing in your potential to achieve something truly exceptional. Because that potential, it's there inside all of us.
Did you like this audiobook summary? Click the like button now to support our channel. If you don't want to miss out on new free audiobook summaries, subscribe and click the bell button. You can also download our free app and enjoy thousands of other summaries of best-selling nonfiction books that are available in text, audio, and animated formats. Story Shots has been featured by Apple, Google, and The Guardian as one of the world's best reading and learning apps. Go to getstoryshots.com and download the app today.